My sister-in-law didn't yell. She didn't argue. She walked across the dining room, looked me straight in the eyes, and slapped me because I served myself dinner before she did. The room froze. My husband lowered his head. His parents stayed silent. Then my 8-year-old daughter asked the question that shattered my heart. Mom, why does everyone let Aunt Melissa be mean to you? In that moment, I realized I wasn't just teaching my children how to be kind. I was teaching them how to accept disrespect. So I slapped my sister-in-law back, took my kids by the hand, and walked out of that house forever. The next morning, the phone rang, and everything her family had hidden for years finally came to light. If someone had asked me a year ago what finally broke our family apart, I probably would have said it was one slap. It wasn't. The slap was just the moment everyone else finally noticed what I'd been living with for years. My name is Emily. I've been married to my husband, Daniel, for almost 12 years. We have 2 wonderful children, Noah, who's 9, and Lily, who's 6. They're the best part of my life. Everything else had slowly become a lesson in staying quiet. Daniel's family had always been close. They celebrated every birthday together, every holiday together, every anniversary together. At first, I thought that kind of closeness was beautiful. Then I realized it came with one unspoken rule. Some people mattered more than others. And according to my sister-in-law, Melissa, I was always at the bottom of that list. Melissa was Daniel's older sister by 3 years. She wasn't loud all the time. She didn't have to be. She had mastered something far more exhausting. Tiny comments, little corrections, subtle reminders that I didn't truly belong. If I brought dessert, she'd smile and say, "Oh, that's sweet. Next time maybe ask me first." I already planned the menu. If I decorated for Christmas, she'd quietly rearrange everything after I left the room. If someone complimented my cooking, she'd immediately explain how she would have done it differently. Nobody ever called her rude. They called her particular. I called it exhausting. The hardest part wasn't Melissa. It was watching everyone pretend not to notice. Especially Daniel. Whenever I'd mention it on the drive home, he'd sigh before answering. She's just protective of family traditions. Or, that's just how Melissa talks. Or, my personal favorite, please don't let something small ruin the whole evening. Something small. Funny how the people who never experienced disrespect were always the ones calling it small. I stopped arguing after a while. Not because he'd convinced me, because I was tired. I didn't want our children growing up hearing constant arguments over people who clearly weren't going to change. Instead, I smiled. I helped clean up. I thanked everyone for dinner. Then I cried quietly in the shower after we got home. The only people who seemed to notice were Noah and Lily. Kids always notice more than adults think. One afternoon, after another uncomfortable Sunday dinner, Noah asked me something while we were driving home. "Mom, why does Aunt Melissa always talk to you differently than everyone else?" I looked in the rearview mirror. His little face wasn't angry, just confused. Before I could answer, Lily spoke from her booster seat. "I don't like when she makes you sad." That hit harder than anything Melissa had ever said. I forced a smile and changed the subject. But their words stayed with me. Children don't care about family politics. They only recognize kindness and the lack of it. A month later, Daniel suggested we celebrate our 12th anniversary with his family. I blinked. "Our anniversary?" He smiled. "My parents insisted. Mom wants to cook your favorite meal. It'll be nice." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to keep it simple. Just the 4 of us. A quiet dinner somewhere. But Daniel looked hopeful. "I think this could be different," he said. "I really do." Against my better judgment, I agreed. The dinner was held at his parents' house the following Saturday evening. The dining room looked beautiful. Fresh flowers. Candles. Our wedding photo sat in the center of the buffet table beside a framed picture of our children. For a brief moment, I believed Daniel had been right. Maybe everyone really wanted a fresh start. Melissa even greeted me with a smile. A strange one. Too polite. Too practiced. It felt less like kindness and more like someone waiting for the right moment. Still, I refused to overthink it. I wasn't there to fight. I was there to celebrate 12 years of marriage. The evening actually went smoothly. People laughed. Old family stories were shared. The kids played in the backyard with their cousins. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table more than once. I started relaxing. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe tonight really would be different. Around 7:30, Daniel's mother announced dinner. Everyone gathered around the long buffet table. The smell of roasted chicken, garlic potatoes, fresh vegetables, and homemade bread filled the room. People stood talking while deciding what they wanted. No one had started serving yet. Daniel's father smiled. "Go ahead, everyone, before the food gets cold." A few relatives were still chatting. Others were pouring drinks. After waiting a few moments, I picked up a plate. There didn't seem to be any order. No one said otherwise. So I quietly stepped forward, served myself a small portion of salad, and reached for the serving spoon beside the roasted chicken. That's when I heard Melissa's heels strike the hardwood floor behind me. Slow. Deliberate. The room suddenly became very quiet. I turned just as she stopped only a few feet away. Her smile was gone. The look in her eyes made my stomach tighten. I honestly thought she was about to criticize my manners. I never imagined what she did next. Before I could say a single word, Melissa reached across the buffet table. Her hand struck the side of my face. Not hard enough to knock me down. Not enough to leave an injury. But loud enough that every conversation in the room stopped instantly. The serving spoon slipped from my fingers and landed back in the tray with a metallic clang. For a second, no one moved. "You really forgot your place, didn't you?" Melissa said, glaring at me. "You don't serve yourself before the family. Especially not before me." The room stayed silent. My cheek stung. But that wasn't what hurt. I slowly turned my head toward Daniel. He was standing only a few feet away. His eyes met mine for half a second. Before dropping to the floor, he didn't step forward. He didn't say my name. He didn't ask if I was okay. He simply stood there, hoping the moment would somehow disappear on its own. That silence was louder than the slap. Behind me, I heard a tiny voice. "Mom?" I turned. Noah had stopped in the doorway leading from the backyard. Lily was holding his hand. Both of them had seen everything. Noah looked frightened. Lily looked confused. My daughter whispered, "Why did Aunt Melissa do that?" No one answered her. Not their grandparents. Not their father. Not a single adult in that room. I looked around the table. Some relatives stared at their plates. Others suddenly became fascinated with their drinks. One uncle quietly cleared his throat. Daniel's mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. It suddenly became crystal clear. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't one person losing her temper. This was years of everyone deciding that keeping Melissa happy mattered more than standing up for what was right. Something inside me became incredibly calm. Not angry. Not emotional. Just finished. I looked down at the plate still resting in my hands. Then I gently placed it back onto the buffet table. The room was so quiet I could hear the candles flickering. Melissa folded her arms. "Well, aren't you going to apologize?" I looked directly into her eyes. My voice stayed steady. "For 12 years, I said quietly, I've apologized for things that were never my fault." She laughed. "Oh, here we go. I apologized when you criticized my cooking." I continued. "I apologized when you embarrassed me in front of relatives. I apologized when you corrected everything I did. I apologized because everyone kept telling me it was easier than arguing." I glanced around the room. "But I'm done apologizing." Melissa rolled her eyes. "You've always been dramatic." "No," I replied. "I've just been quiet." She stepped closer. "So, what are you going to do about it?" For one brief moment, I hoped someone else would finally step in. Daniel, his father, anyone. No one moved. I nodded slowly, as if I finally understood something that had taken 12 years to learn. Then, I raised my hand and returned a single open-handed slap. Not out of rage. Not to start a fight. Simply to make one thing unmistakably clear. Respect goes both ways. The room gasped. Melissa stumbled backward one step, more shocked than hurt. She touched her cheek and stared at me as though she couldn't believe anyone had ever challenged her. You, she whispered. How dare you? I took a slow breath. I could ask you the same question. Nobody spoke. Daniel finally found his voice. Emily. I looked at him. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. Not because he'd changed, because I finally saw him clearly. He had spent years protecting everyone's comfort, except mine. I walked past him without saying another word. Noah immediately reached for my hand. Lily wrapped both arms around my waist. It's okay, I told them softly. We're going home. Neither child argued. They simply followed me. As we reached the front door, Daniel hurried after us. Emily, please. Don't leave like this. I stopped on the porch, but didn't turn around immediately. The cool evening air felt strangely peaceful after everything inside. Finally, I faced him. I'm not leaving because your sister embarrassed me. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Then I continued. I'm leaving because you watched it happen. He looked stunned. I didn't know what to do. You've had 12 years to figure that out. His face fell. It wasn't that simple. It actually was. I said quietly. Every single time you stayed silent, you made a choice. The words hit him harder than anything else I'd said. Behind him, relatives had begun gathering near the doorway. Some were arguing. Others were trying to calm Melissa, who was loudly insisting that I had ruined the evening. Ruined the evening. Not the years leading up to it. Just the moment someone finally refused to accept it anymore. I buckled Noah and Lily into the car. Neither child spoke during the drive home. About 20 minutes later, my phone began vibrating. One message after another. Some relatives accused me of overreacting. Others insisted I should have been the bigger person. Then came a message from Daniel's cousin, Rachel. I'm sorry. You weren't wrong. We've all seen how Melissa treats you. A few minutes later, another text arrived. Then another. Quiet confessions from family members who admitted they had noticed the pattern for years, but had never said anything. I realized something important. People often recognize injustice long before they find the courage to acknowledge it. Just after 8 the next morning, someone knocked on my front door. Standing outside was Daniel's 80-year-old Aunt Margaret. She held a worn leather folder tightly against her chest. When I opened the door, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, Emily, it's time you learned why Melissa always believed this family would never tell her no. I stepped aside and invited Aunt Margaret inside. She walked slowly, carefully placing the worn leather folder on my kitchen table before removing her coat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. She simply looked at me with the kind of expression only someone who had watched a family slowly unravel could wear. Finally, she sighed. I should have said something years ago. I poured 2 cups of coffee. What is all this? I asked, nodding toward the folder. She rested one hand on it. It's the reason Melissa believes this family revolves around her. She opened it. Inside were old photographs, handwritten letters, birthday cards, and several neatly folded documents dating back almost 30 years. One faded letter caught my attention immediately. It was written by Daniel's late grandfather. Aunt Margaret slid it toward me. Read the highlighted part. I did. Loving one child more than another will eventually teach the rest of the family to fear honesty instead of valuing it. I looked up. I don't understand. She smiled sadly. Melissa was never taught she had to earn respect. She was taught to expect it. Over the next hour, Aunt Margaret told me stories no one else ever had. Melissa had always been treated differently. If she argued with relatives, everyone else was expected to apologize. If she ruined birthdays, people excused it because she was having a hard day. If she insulted someone, the victim was told not to take it personally. Every year the pattern became stronger. Nobody wanted conflict, so everyone surrendered a little more. Eventually, Melissa stopped seeing kindness as generosity. She saw it as permission. When your father-in-law was younger, Aunt Margaret continued, he tried to correct her once. What happened? My mother cried for 3 days. And after that, he never challenged Melissa again. I leaned back in my chair. So this wasn't about serving food. She shook her head.
No.
It never was. It was about someone finally refusing the role she'd assigned you. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I agreed to meet him the following morning at a small cafe halfway between our homes.
He looked exhausted.
Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. For several moments, he simply stared into his untouched coffee. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't sleep. I kept hearing Noah ask why nobody helped you." I remained silent. There isn't an answer that doesn't make me ashamed. Those words felt different. Not defensive. Not rehearsed. Honest. "I spent years telling myself I was keeping peace," he continued. "But I wasn't. I was protecting everyone except my own family." I looked out the cafe window. People walked past laughing, carrying groceries, living ordinary lives. It struck me how strange it was that respect should ever feel extraordinary. Daniel pushed a folded piece of paper across the table. "I've already spoken to my parents. They know things can't continue like this." "And Melissa?" "They asked her to apologize." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" He gave a tired smile. "She refused. According to Daniel, she insisted everyone had betrayed her. She claimed I had embarrassed the family. She expected his parents to demand that I apologize for disrespecting an older sibling. For the first time in her life, they didn't. Instead, Daniel's father calmly told her something she had apparently never heard before. You don't get respect by demanding it. You get it by giving it. Melissa left the house angry. She stopped answering family calls for several weeks. Surprisingly, the family gatherings became quieter, lighter. No one argued over where people sat. No one criticized what anyone brought. The constant tension I'd felt for years simply wasn't there. A month later, Daniel invited me and the kids to dinner. Not at his parents' house. Not at a restaurant. At our own home. Just us. No speeches. No pressure. No promises. He cooked every meal himself. When Noah reached for the serving spoon, Daniel smiled. "You first, buddy." Lily giggled. "I want salad." "Then salad it is," he laughed. Nobody corrected anyone. Nobody competed. Everyone simply ate together. Halfway through dinner, Noah looked at me. "Mom, can people really change?" I glanced at Daniel. He wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But, for the first time in a long time, he was trying instead of pretending. "I think people can," I answered. "But only after they admit they've been wrong." Months passed. Healing wasn't quick. Trust never returns overnight. It's rebuilt one choice at a time. One conversation. One action. One ordinary day after another. Daniel continued showing up. Not with excuses. With consistency. His parents also changed. Family invitations became exactly that. Invitations. Not obligations. Everyone was treated equally. As for Melissa, I genuinely hope she eventually found peace. Because people who constantly need to stand above everyone else rarely discover happiness. Only loneliness. Sometimes I think back to that anniversary dinner. People assume the moment that changed my life was when my sister-in-law slapped me. It wasn't. The moment that changed my life came seconds later, when I realized I no longer needed anyone else's permission to protect my own dignity. Walking out that front door wasn't the end of my family. It was the beginning of building the kind of family my children deserved. A family where no one has to earn basic respect. A family where kindness isn't mistaken for weakness. And every now and then, when we gather around our own dinner table, Noah grins, reaches for the serving spoon first, and jokingly asks, "Mom, is it okay if I go before everyone else?" I smile every single time. Of course. Because in this house, everyone has a place at the table.